been waiting on you, Dave. It's all about you.
Perfectly on. We are on.
All right. We're going to call to order the February meeting for the Redevelopment Commission. First item we have is approval of the agenda. I will have one item to add, and it's under number 6. We should have, hopefully by then, an invoice from Logos for our signage. Other than that, I have no further additions.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
We have a motion. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No. Approval of the minutes. Sherry sent those out to us all. Hope everybody had a chance to read them. Quite thorough, I would say.
Very good.
We need a motion to approve the minutes.
I will make a motion to approve.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Got a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. TIF district balances really haven't changed a whole lot. Wapaka is $294,968.48. I'm sorry, that's courthouse. That's courthouse. Wapaka is now $356,193.06. That's the one we're still actively paying bonds from until 2027, I believe. I think that's when those are all done. Web Wheel is $328,226.34, and Riverview West is $4,290.06. Forest Canyon Heights, so that's number 4 on our agenda. The first thing I have to bring up with that is we need to organize grass mowing again for 2025. Last time I just contacted some of our mowers, and I guess we can do the same. And get bids. Talk to the person that did it last time. I have not talked to him yet. They did a great job.
Did you put up a bid?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did, and actually Taylor's he's already contacted me for the range, yeah. And I was gonna do it a couple of weeks ago and I did not, so is it okay if I just go ahead and get bids back?
Who all was it? Taylor Company
We
and.
have a list.
Yeah,
A
I've got
lot
a
of-
list, something like
So
this.
do you just send it out to them or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually called.
Okay, so you have a list of all the people who mow and.
I have a list that was out there that we used last year.
It was a pretty good list.
And I know some were disappointed they didn't get it, but they were too high, so it was real simple. So
As
I'll
long as
do the
everybody
same.
has an opportunity to bid,
Yeah,
I'm
I'll do the
fine.
same, and I think now everybody has a better understanding of what's involved, so hopefully it'll be less.
I'll make a motion that John send out to the contractors bids for mowing.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yeah, last year was a real mess. The first few ones were a real mess because we got way behind and the grass was real tall. And we hacked it down a couple of times. Anyway.
As long as they have the
this
scope and.
Yeah, it should be much better. The other thing that we really, and we talked about this a little bit last time, is marketing. And I know Kelly's worked on it some. I think Bill's worked on it some. You guys have anything you want to discuss?
I sent everybody an email from 2 letters. I reached out to them to see what their proposal was, and they had some social media marketing ideas there that you can review with some just kind of generic costs. Depends on the details, what you would want to do. That was one of the options that I researched. I did talk to 3 different realtors in town and asked them what it would take to get it on the MLS and to get them to really push and advertise the lots. And they thought $1,000 a lot would be what they would need to be able to do that. That's just the 3 that I talked to. They thought that would be a reasonable amount. And then I also called radio stations and I'm waiting on quotes from them for commercial ads, and then I also called a couple of TV stations, and I did get one back for commercials, and I think I printed that off, and I just now laid it down in front of you, so that's not something we can probably discuss today, but I want you to look at that for review. Lots of options there.
Do you have any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, Kelly's done quite a bit of work here. I have talked, it's just I was subbing at Tell City and I happen to know the marketing teacher. And I asked if there'd be any interest there of working with the high schools. As far as marketing, it would give them some practical experience. And it doesn't have to be in place of this. It could be to support this. But, you know, of course, we'd have to make sure we had the approval administration, make sure everything was okay and where we want to go in addition to this. I mean, as far though as, you know, paying a commission yet, what's that, John?
Were they receptive to that?
Oh, very.
I
Sarah
guess that's-
Sarah
I give
Spires,
them great real-world experience.
Sarah Spires is the teacher, and she's actually a former player of mine, but she teaches at Tell City, and I've discussed it with her, and very, very interested in trying to do whatever we can to help push this.
Okay.
I mean, I love this marketing proposal that we got, but I don't think we can afford it. And if we could do something like that with the high school instead.
I think it's twofold with the high school. One, it helps them,
Yeah.
and two, it helps us.
That's two, it helps us, that's right. I mean,
You know, the other thing, and because I think right now it seems like the social media / marketing, it's not a bad place, but the only thing we would have to have there is we'd have to have somebody from our commission dedicated to making sure it gets on there. And I'll tell you who that's not, and it's me. Because I don't really do that stuff, truth be known.
Well, I mean, it's like,
And I know
Kelly's done a lot of
Shiraz
work on this.
Strauss has pushed some stuff out there.
We could, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be Kelly or me, but I don't mind working with the high school in conjunction with what Kelly's already done. And to see what ideas they have. I mean, you know, just.
I think it's a great place to start.
can we give them like the drone footage we have? I think that's important to have that footage out there.
He's got it all.
Yeah, of course. I've been documenting Forest Canton ever since it started, and I know we have talked about marketing here in general a bit. Of course, not knowing at the time what it all entailed and how far we wanted to go. Of course, you know, social media is part of it that can easily be done. Of course, there's marketing, drone footage. If you'd like for me to hand over all the images and drone footage, happy to do that. Just any way I can help.
I mean, we can, from there, I would say we'll see what the high school comes up with.
Because I don't think, I tried to do a search and I don't see it advertised anywhere on social media other than Jaco Homes. I mean, if you just search for it, that's how you find it, other than something 2 years ago.
When we start.
Yes, and there's nothing current, there's nothing out there. So how are people supposed to know about it if it's not out there?
Do you want me to proceed
Yes, I do.
with the high school angle?
I mean, I think so. And I would say if you and Kelly want to work together.
Is it okay, Kelly?
Yeah, sure.
You get Shiraz involved because he's got a lot of the imaging and I think some of the original stuff that we did. And you see what we can throw out there.
I assume our local finance institutions are aware of this. Lots are
Well,
available.
they were aware of, now did they remember or not, that I don't know.
Financial
Oh,
institutions.
my nation.
I mean, most people that come to the house are probably going to borrow.
You know, and also another thing, whenever this all first started and you sent out the packet, there was an initial packet, you sent it to all kinds of home builders and all those things. Do we still have that list? Because I could
Yeah.
create another packet or take what we have and do another mailing.
Just as a reminder, or yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I should still have all the mailing labels and stuff, all of those.
I mean, if you want me to do that, it's not gonna cost much, so I can do that.
Kelly, have you talked to any of the news people in Evansville? Have you?
That one, I just talked to her today. She just sent me that information over right before the meeting, so I haven't had a chance to review it. She was talking about with March Madness coming up and all the sports and things, if you do, typically people do 2-week commercials, they'll do a week either back to back or, 2 weeks back to back, or they'll do one in between, like a week and then a week off and another week and a week off. It just depends. And she said there's different pricing, and you can do 15-second commercials, 30-second commercials. I mean, they can do all the filming, or they can take images and video that we have and put something together. It's just another option to push it out a little bit beyond Perry County, And I think that's what we need. I really think, I think it's a disadvantage to not have it on the MLS. That's where people from the outside, are looking. Mostly, a lot of the people that live here, I think they know about it, or they drive by and they see it and they're semi-aware of what it is, or things like that. They know where they can probably go or ask people, locals, to find out if they're interested, but it's the ones that are outside that I don't think.
Let
really
me
know.
check with the one realtor called me, and that they said they would do it for nothing. Let me reach back to them. And if they'll do that, I'm just gonna tell them to do it.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I mean, if it's free.
I mean, the three I talked to thought that, in order for them to market it and push it, because, that they have to make money too. And that's their business. So they said that $1,000, but if you have somebody doing it for free, I guess.
She actually called specifically and asked me.
When they put it on the MLS.
I can ask her. I didn't ask her that specifically, but I'll ask.
One of the other things I remember, our former Congressman Sean coming down here, this was and I just made some notes, this was the fastest project that he had seen done with rating money in the state of Indiana.
Really?
The fastest, couldn't believe how fast it got accomplished. He said, well, there's a reason for that. It's because we took the bureaucracy out of it.
Yeah, we did.
And, that's all. You're seeing a lot with ESSER funds from schools and COVID relief money. They're starting to see a lot of bad things that happen. Well, you know what? This is one of the good things that happened. Our community was part of it. And that's something that, that needs to be talked about also. Look what we did. We've done this to bring people in, cut your costs, cut the builder's costs. So that's part of the marketing too. This is your money at work. So something to add to that.
So I'll check with that person. Bill will check with the high school, and the three of you guys want to kind of hook up, Kelly, Bill, and Sharon.
Would you be willing to maybe meet at the high school if we can get an arrangement?
And again, if nothing else, if there are options to put it out on the social media stuff, and once we get the packet put together, I think we go ahead and just shove it out there. At least get that going.
Yes, absolutely.
And also, John, if you like, I'm happy to share ideas too when you meet with the high school people or folks. We have never really talked about like a marketing plan to put together for Forest Canton. We have just talked about kind of making a library of images of all these drone shots, right? So if you were to look at it 5 years from now, you can see the progression. Right. But I'm happy to share all ideas, organic paid Facebook strategies, posting pictures, anything.
I think we're there now. How's that?
I think we need to update our map too, that like you have sold there. I mean, is that something that we can get? I haven't seen.
Well, I was getting ready to get into this. The next
available.
step, Tom was going to ask me about the signs and everything.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, when I ordered we're going to redo the signs, and when I first talked to Zach, he only ordered like 5 signs. I go, well, I think we decided just to go ahead and do them all. And when I finally got them in, when the weather started hitting, we get, those things will be hard enough to push down. I wasn't before the ice. So I have them in the back of my car, and I intend to put those out. These right here are updated lists, and I'll give you a copy.
Yeah.
They're also going to be put out there in our box. And what I'm going to try to do is to find some type, I think I'm going to get these little numbers where the ones that are sold, every time I go out there and mark those, they're washed away. So I'm going to try to find something that's a little bit rain resistant. And every time when somebody drives up, at least the big board that we have there will be up to date. So I plan on doing that soon. But anyway, these are the lots. This is an updated list. So I'll get everybody a copy of one of these before we leave, and then that's what's gonna be out there. And the signs, we got the shorter wire ones because and I'm gonna put them close to the road. And once the grass season starts, I'm going to do a little spraying around them. That way the person mowing doesn't have to worry about it.
Knock them over, and the wind doesn't blow them.
Hopefully closer to the ground, it will be a little bit sturdier because once I get them in the ground, they'll be about this tall, but they're gonna be right when you drive by. So,
What are the signs? They're like yard signs?
it's just they're just numbered,
Oh,
1, 2,
okay,
3.
okay. they-
We had 'em
Okay.
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I
and
saw.
with the process of mowing and people going out there now and building houses, there's still a few left, but I want to reorganize it, make a little, look a little neater when you drive in.
So for next month, then you all come back with some ideas and find out what the high school said, and then I'll find out, and I'll let you all know before the meeting on what I find out from the realtor. Is that okay? And we have had a little more, we have had some interest. I had a couple of phone calls from builders who I think are gonna progress, but we're not ready to do it yet because they're not quite willing to commit to a lot at this point. So I'm hoping within the next 30 days that we'll be able to do that at the next meeting. So we can start seeing some more houses start to go up. This particular builder, when he says go, he'll be putting the house up. He's ready to go, but he's got a couple things he's got to finish up first. So I've got a feeling by the next meeting, we're gonna know. We'll know about that. So there's some things happening. There are some things happening. I just don't want it to, as we talked about last month, I don't want it to get stale.
So there's 7 lots sold so far? Is that what it looks like?
Actually, yeah, there's 7 so far, and I think there will be 8.
So Aaron, can we put it on the Pig Perry site? On the website? Cause I noticed there's a section in there for, I can't remember what it said, moving and living here or something, but there's no info about. Thank you.
And Sherry, if you can give me the list of those builders that you sent it to,
Mhm.
I can maybe create a packet and bring it to the next meeting and just see if you guys approve it or if you want any changes, and then I can get that sent out.
Okay, got a plan for next month. Item number 5, planning and discussion for multifamily housing. I did sit down with the mayor, and he's very favorable. Now, there are a couple projects that are beginning to get on the way, if you want to use the term, but have not been finalized yet for apartment housing. There's potentially 2 of those over the next 12 to 24 months. When I talked to Chris, the mayor, we discussed some lots, and we're starting to formulate a plan on how that would look and where. So he gave me a list of a lot of the lots in town that are, I don't know if delinquent's the right word, but there may be some areas that would work favorably for. So I'm sorting through those right now with Chris. And next month we will have some ideas and thoughts, and I think we might even be ready to start a process on getting a couple of these lots ready for at least for us to take out to a bid process like we did with the apartment complex. So what we discussed was, and I don't know the answer. Steve's going to check with their legal side. And the discussion was, do we do it the same way we did with the apartment, where the city basically deeds it to the Redevelopment Commission, and we have to take it from there? That seemed to be very favorable to them. We'll just have to see what the legal folks say about that. Because it's a little easier for us to work through the process than it is for the city. And the big selling point is to get those lots back on the tax rolls. And again, that's going to be more of a patios / multifamily, like duplexes. It's going to be that style. Although Chris did say, and I agree with him on this, that, what we may have them do is submit a bid as well as a kind of a design. So we kind of know what we're looking at. to make sure that it really kind of fits into the areas that we're looking at potentially doing this. So, and then we talked about, and we have not talked about this with the Port Authority. Port Authority owns some lots also. We had a brief discussion at our meeting about it, but we haven't finalized some of the ideas that we have for some of those lots that the Port Authority now owns.
Are we talking subsidized apartments, like
No.
low income or market rate, or what type?
Talking about market rate.
Okay.
Everything right now is market rate. I am not a fan of a lot of the subsidized stuff. I don't know if that's really what we need to do in these locations that we're looking at. So if we can do it without subsidy, yes. Now, what we may have to do is help with, as we did maybe with some utility stuff or on the bid process, getting the land prices relatively reasonable. And that's how we did the first apartment project. Is that was a bid, money came in. We actually received the money, that we turned around and gave that money back to the city for infrastructure, sidewalks and that sort of stuff. So we never really captured any of it. We just basically flipped the money through the Redevelopment Commission to help improve the community. And it's worked. And those things have done extremely well. I talked to Ron about that last week, and he is like overwhelmed how well those apartments have gone and how fast they got filled up.
How many are you talking about? Is that still in planning stages?
I don't know yet. The duplexes, I'm assuming we're looking at more like a patio would be more like a fourplex kind of a thing. Would be four, probably 2-bedroom. That's about what's going to fit on the lots that we're looking at, David. The other apartment complex, I mean, it could be anywhere from 25 to 40. I don't know. And in that 30 range. I know the one that we had proposed on last fall was how many? 40?
40, and they are planning to reapply.
Yeah.
It is considered low income housing, but it is not.
It's not really subsidized.
Yeah,
It was kind of a quasi thing. I was totally opposed, but basically the cost of those would allow somebody that has a job to afford. So somebody that has.
Is it restrictive of, you can't make over a certain amount?
They do have an income in
There
there.
are limits, I think.
Well, they don't really have an income, but what they're able to do, from what I understand, is they're able to, because they're getting tax subsidies, they're able to reduce the cost slightly, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
a
the
great
rent
amount.
was still it was not free rent by any means, and you had to have some income.
Yep.
But it was more in the range of someone, not necessarily working in industry, but more in the service sector.
They look like
Would
a
it
single
restrict
bedroom.
someone from Wapaka
Yeah,
living there?
If their income was to over that limit. Now, I think, like if you were a one stay-at-home parent and someone working at Wapaka and like had 2 kids, I think that you could have fallen in that range. But there was also a range, like
Single
they
bedroom
range
like
from
$800 a month.
30% of area median income up to 80% of area median income. And the 80% was a lot. I mean, that would it got up, like, I think it was 65,000 for a family of 4, 63,000. So, I mean, we're not, like, they had to be working.
Yeah.
They didn't get their tax credits, or they did?
They did not
That's
receive
what-
them in the last round. It was very competitive, and they have decided to do it one more time. And we are working on a few things that we think could increase its score based upon the criteria that they put out updated criteria last month.
So like somebody working in, say, the nursing home, they would qualify, but it would also help them, So when I looked at it, first I said, absolutely not, we're not even gonna talk about it. Then when I started looking at the numbers, I found out that there's a niche. So it's kind of a niche group of apartments. And I felt better about it, knowing that we were looking at some basically market rate apartments coming also.
Yeah, and that these are 2 separate projects. Like
And that's
there's that
still out
project
there.
and then a market
That's still
rate.
out there. I don't know what, the port, see, the property they're looking at is port property. So when we talked about it at the port, that's kind of where these conversations all came into play. So it's another option, and all we're trying to do is look at all the options. Look at all the options. And at this point, that's really not, at this point, I don't even think it's gonna affect this board. But this board has been kind of in the middle of getting a lot of this organized, so it does affect us indirectly.
I know there were some discussions from, the mayor of Cannleton wanting some housing, some help with some housing in Cannleton. And then Commissioner Cole came for the commissioners and asked about a different type of housing, like the hermit agent type housing, where you have a couple acres and it's gravel lots or lanes with a view or something like that. I mean, is that something we can also look at?
Well, so right now,
outside
the kind of the mantra that we use, if it's property owned by a government entity that we can get our hands on to like we did the hospital property, then yes. But if it's private, I don't think we're in the private business. Because we can't turn around and buy the property from the private person and do a project like this.
We met recently with the owner of the French Ridge Estates that had come before this board previously. And he is still interested and is still pursuing doing that project. But at this time, I believe, I think it was like 14 to 16 lots at one point, and it's gone down to 7 or 8. He's made them larger, and he has decided to eliminate gas and sewer. Because, and it really seems unfortunate because, you know, it runs right along, but it's on the other side of the highway. And from the research that he had done, he really felt like the level of cost that it would increase, it just would make the project not feasible. However, we did provide them with the ready application and talked through some different options, and I'm just waiting to hear back on it.
So we don't know if they've applied for.
I haven't received a completed application back.
And what we've done with like them is we help them organize. So I sat down with them from an organizational standpoint and helped them. So they didn't take so much time figuring it out, that they could just step right through the process from planning and zoning to who they need to contact, engineering. Since we've been through it, that was part of the process of us going through ours, is we now have a structure for outside entities to use.
We have that in a written form so that we
I
can,
do someplace.
I think that'd be nice to have
And
that.
some of the stacks and stuff that I have, yeah. But that was part of that exercise to try to figure out how to streamline the process, which that means it saves somebody a bunch of money. Because when you're having to go through all that and you're paying people to do it, it's expensive.
And we wanted to help with that.
Yeah.
We don't have the income stream.
We have
We have
And
no
I
income
think
stream.
he's already invested a significant amount of his own funds, and if he were to go past a certain point, I think it makes the lots so expensive that it's just not feasible.
Yeah.
A residential TIF on that is applicable, but
The number is
the
just,
numbers,
It wouldn't
it was in the millions. We couldn't collect enough taxes all that 50 years.
and now that it's fewer homes,
even
I just
worse.
think
Yeah,
that
it's gonna be worse.
And that
Harder to
would
get that in.
have required more things from road frontage, road work and all that kind of stuff too. Yeah. So I mean, the advantage I think part of the advantage for us is, we're keeping the word out there for folks and we're trying to keep things going. You know, before there was just nothing happening, at least now there's something happening. And I think that's what we're gonna have to continually have.
and Hoosier Heights is, I mean, they're continuing to progress. I think they're hoping to build a model home that could be.
Because they got so few weather issues right now.
Yeah,
too.
the weather hasn't been great, but I mean, that is progressing forward, and the first phase of that is 33 single-family home lots with a potential of up to 80 in that.
So we're getting some inventory out there.
I was just thinking if we could diversify it a little bit, instead of like you have the in-town situation, then you have the right outside of town, smaller lots, and then.
The challenge is I don't know any property.
Don't we have some by ATTC?
We do, we have 90 acres. We actually looked, that's how the Forest
Parcel
Camp
some of that off.
started. That's how it actually started.
I mean, would we be able to slice a piece of that off if that's a conversation we wanna have?
We can, yeah.
I think you have to, if you want my opinion, But you have a piece of property there, the graded prep site. And I think if you pursue housing on the backside of that property, you're gonna eliminate almost anything you could do with that, the front prepped industrial site that you have. The majority of requests that come through, they do not want to be near residential whatsoever. And there's only one road in and out.
These are well, they're talking
Road on
We
the
have the
backside.
redevelopment land right next door to it that butts up to
They're not diverse in that. It's a neat place on the backside. You just can't get to it.
It's very,
it's no, not Forest Canton,
Yeah,
yeah, the Highlands,
that's
that we have
90 acres.
redevelopment property that butts right
There's
into
90
it.
acres back there.
But I mean, it's literally right on the edge and it can extend over if you needed to for 10 or 15. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, actually, that's where, they're literally where the Forest Canton Heights idea came from, was that piece of property. That's where that all
I
started.
just think that some people don't want the smaller lots. They don't want to be in town. I really think there is a need for more like a Tipsaw Acres
Well,
type.
and maybe that's where we
Couple
maybe get
acres,
into
2,
more
3, 4
promotional for some of our builders and stuff. I mean, we're not technically in the housing mill here. We're just trying to stimulate it.
And I think you did a good job out here. I'm just thinking.
And I think here's the challenge we got is, okay, so we did one, and I think we did it very successfully, I'll just say. But we did it to get things started, but that's not our business. I mean, we're a commission without a budget, if you want to think about it. We were just fortunate if we figured out how to use what we could to make it happen. And I think if we can do something for people is to help them walk through the process very, very efficiently, which means working with the city, working with the county, building and zoning people, and creating a plan for the builders. Say, okay, here's your plan. All you gotta do is follow the plan and this thing is gonna go very smoothly with contacts. That's kind of one of the things that I would still like to get totally done. We're sort of there, but we're not.
Yeah, every $200,000 or $300,000 duplex or home that gets added to the assessed valuation is gonna matter. We have a few dollars that we can help stimulate. I know several of us have talked to the mayor, the gas company, the electric company, what could we do to cut the cost down? Cut the tap-in fees out. You know, that's, when you're building a home today, when you're faced with $10,000, $15,000 in tap fees, that's stuff we can help with. That's within what little money we do have. We can work with people on that. And if you build one, $200,000 or $300,000 duplex, look what you just created tax-wise. Now they get their money, their investment, the utilities, they get their investment back over time. Then everybody grows with tax dollars. The more we get, the less everybody is. So that's one thing we can do.
Yeah, one thing, and I thought about this after Smokey talk, have they identified in Camilton kind of an area that they say, this is an area that we really want to develop this way? And I guess I really didn't get that from him, and I never really asked that specific question either, so shame on me. But I don't know, if you talk to him.
I think there's some, I think that from the conversation that I listened to was the Can Clay property in certain parcels, but I think it's a long way from anywhere
It's
right
not real
now.
clear. Is
Right.
that fair?
And I don't know, is that the number one priority? I mean, I put the list together of all, everyone's priorities with the commissioners, the council, the city of Tell City, what Tony had gotten from people, and then the mayor of Hamilton. And I think everybody has that. Sherry printed them off, thank you. But I mean, I guess this is my question. Like, there's multiple people who are saying blight is a problem. So is that something we need to help with, or,
Well, I think we can help with that if we're asked.
Well, I think they did. I mean,
Well, I mean, they did, but they did what they didn't. I mean, I think the issue that I had with all of them is they really weren't real specific. It was very general. We want you to do this. 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 It's like, that's not really what this commission does, number one. Well, hell, we've actually taken on more than what we probably are supposed to. Shame on us, I guess, but So that's why maybe it's time for us to go back and say, give us a couple specific topics.
What are your top 2 priorities or whatever it is?
Because, I mean, whether it's the blight or the infrastructure, you know, I continue to have residents in the county ask me for, the ones that have to haul water. They either want water lines extended to them or they want water tanks like we have in town out in the county in a couple areas so that they don't have to come all the way in from St. Croix or Derby
That would be
to,
doable, wouldn't it?
well, I would think that, because that's something we can work on because,
I worked
I
on the
would love
water
to.
tank issue. I've talked to, Antro. They are absolutely not in favor of that. And the reasons they gave me were pretty solid. Maintenance in the winter time. He said it's just not a good idea. Now, we did through, how much did we give?
500,000.
We gave 500,000.
Yeah.
Has that got anywhere as far as?
Yeah, I talked to Commissioner Cole today and he has an update from Jackie. Something about they're identifying the areas and the study came back, the bids maybe or something, the proposals are a little higher than what they originally thought. So there's some issues there, but I think they're still working, you know, on where that is and where they're going to be able to get the best bang for the buck to extend the lines. But I mean, I understand, I guess I understand, not really, you know, Antro's, what are the challenges? Is it something that this board can help
What
with?
they had talked to other utilities who attempted to do that, and it just did not work out. By putting the portable stations out there to fill your tanks from not having to come in town. And I don't recall all the reasons, but it's a question that can be asked again, or we can have them come in.
Yeah.
And say, you know, this is why we are totally against this.
And
That's
maybe,
what they're in the business of, not us.
and I realize Antro, maybe they don't want to do it, but have we approached Patoka to see if they would be interested? Because I know they service some of this county also.
No.
So, I mean,
That's a good idea, we could ask them. Ask them both.
I mean, and I think that there's ready funds that are for things like this infrastructure, you know, extending water lines or access to water and all of that type stuff. And I think that,
Jackie for the amount of time Nathan and Nathan from Region 15, we met twice in December, I believe it was, and I provided her the ready application. Now there are challenges from, I think the way the state has currently set the metrics for the ready funds, I think it is a challenge because technically it is supposed to lead to new growth and a new investment or a new, like, someone willing to sign on the dotted line that says, I'm gonna invest this and I'm developing this many units. And it, you know, it's getting service to investments that are already here, developments that are already here. However, I still think it's worth pursuing because I know that they just have there aren't a lot of funds that they can access. And we talked about ways that they could do it. I've given her an application that I
but is that something we can bring them in, maybe Patoka and Antro? I mean, to talk about that, because I think that, you know, that's something if we can, and I realize what you're saying, that these people are already here. But I mean, if we can get access to these underserved areas, whether it be one of those tanks or more lines or whatever it is, then the assessed value is going to go up. You know, the property will be worth more. Then maybe more people will want to invest and move here. You know, if they maybe they don't want to live in town. Maybe they want to live outside town, but they don't want to haul water. So, I mean, I don't know. I just think I would really like to pursue that. I just think it's extremely inconvenient to have to come away to town. I would like to discuss that further and then see if there's ready.
Time to push the button.
I think so too.
When we talked about, I think one of the hesitations was that based upon, so they're up against a time frame of when they've got to utilize the ARP funds, and that has already been bid out. And if they were to just, I think they were looking for a way to capture a larger amount of ready funds, and I encouraged them to just move forward and
matching funds.
right. But even if right now they could use the ready funds to fill that gap of where the bids came in higher.
Yeah.
Let's do that, and then we can look at maybe what's next, but just to get something now.
Yeah, or, I mean, I don't know what we have, from a county standpoint with excess TIF funds and what you can do, what you can't do, if you can extend an area, if you can move those around, if we can get creative with some other funding, so that we have matching for things like Ready. But I just think that it really needs to be a priority. I don't know.
Well,
That's
we
just-
only have one TIF operational.
Well, yeah, I understand, but I mean, we have,
So why don't we
we're sitting
invite-
on almost 300,000 or whatever it is at the courthouse TIF. What are we gonna do?
Back in next month. If you guys are gonna be here, you can work with them and give your opinion on the ready funds, and we need to talk to USDA about other
And that
sources.
could go towards your overall investment, that you need for,
Yeah, and they're
Or
considered
even first.
public.
Yeah.
So any funds that they put in are considered public. I mean, that helps the math. I think it's worth pursuing. I just think
Yeah, I agree.
it's easy, especially because there's like a scope that's already been determined and it's been bid out. I think it's a great time to at least try to fill the
Before it's
gap
gone.
of, okay, they came in over this amount, we have 500,000. Let's use the ready money to fill the gap and get it done.
and then also if we could invite someone from Patoka, because they
That's what-
service several of the communities here, or, several of the residents, sorry. That's just,
I'm still favorable of seeing if we can get Tell City Sewer to extend also.
well,
And that's gonna be a bonding issue, I know.
you mean from Branchville to the interstate?
Huh?
From Branchville to the interstate? Okay, I had another question about that. I had someone approach me and ask me about a small sewage station or whatever you call them. If we just put one out there, what grants are available for something like that so that to spur
Question is,
development?
why would we have a line that's not fully occupied?
Well, if you have to go through miles and miles of Hoosier National Forest with no users, I don't know if
We're
that's
not gonna be
feasible.
right on 37, so you'd be in the right of way.
There you go, we don't keep fishing in the forest.
Well, I mean, where are the users? If there's Hoosier National Forest along the way, how are you ever gonna have
Well,
hookups?
then you have places like potentially, of course, Leopold's talked about it, but that's where you can start branching those like we've done here in town with the pump systems.
You can't, it's cost
I
prohibitive to branch that sewer line away from 37 more than a half mile. You cannot get it to smaller communities. You just cost prohibitive. Can't do it.
Well, I'm just talking about interstate development. I'm not positive that, I
We're
don't,
not just getting it
yeah.
out to the interstate.
That's what we're
You
talking
just
about.
said branching it off, we're not.
but don't you have to have users to be using it or it's gonna cause issues?
Well, you have to have somebody running stuff through it, and that's part of the issue they have now. They actually need users right now.
Yeah.
On their system. So if we can figure out how to help them get more users on their system, it's gonna help their flow a lot better. Because they have a problem with that already, from what I understand.
There's not enough flow.
That's my understanding. It's my understanding.
If we could just get it to that area near the interstate, then I think we could absolutely
But that's gonna be a
develop.
whole different, I think that's a whole different deal because, we did the last one that was done through a bond issue. But the help there was we had the prison and the school, which were big users.
I think we could find out. I remember when Lavon was there, they actually looked at that cost. And it was,
Yeah.
yeah, they did a feasibility study and it was just
Yeah.
very,
So-
very expensive.
So if that's not an option because of cost, is it an option to just put a small facility out there?
I guess if somebody wanted to do it, but it would have to be a sewer district of some sort that would have to monitor it. I'm just guessing. I don't know this.
I would think that there's
It's been
federal
outside.
dollars out there.
Tim Huff tried it. Didn't go so good.
Well, I don't mean necessarily for residential, I mean to spur commercial development.
And see, that's what.
With larger
commercial groups
users.
Don't want to do, from what I understand, because they don't want to be operating.
I didn't mean for them to have to do it. I thought whether the county does it or someone does it, if we could get federal dollars in here to help, I mean, that might be a cheaper option here. I don't know.
think, from what I'm saying is the best way is to hit it on the line, because then you have to create sewer districts, you have to do all this other stuff. Because somebody's got to operate. It
And
costs money.
I mean, we had met quite a bit.
I don't know.
with Leopold,
I'm just trying to figure
and
out
they
how
were
we can maybe
interested
extend all
in
this.
doing it, and
It's big money.
it was very expensive for the return on investment or the overall cost to justify the number of users that were interested in hooking onto it and the terrain to get to where they were at, I think was the most, the biggest hurdle. But there have been discussions about, okay, well, maybe we don't utilize Tell City wastewater and that and how, but then the question becomes, who's the sewer district? Who takes on that responsibility and wants to serve in
I
that?
just like to look at both options, if we, you know.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's gonna be the county looking at it, it's not gonna be us.
Yeah, I understand.
We're just gonna throw the ideas. So we're not an authority.
Who's going to invite Antro and Patoka?
Call them.
I'll call them.
You wanna call one, I'll call the other, I don't care.
I'll call Patoka.
I'll call Andrew. I'll call Jack.
And that's after we set it.
When are the applications for ready due, or when are the final decisions gonna be made so that we know that we don't wanna miss that? You know, if there's an opportunity here to do something, whether it's with the water stations or extending lines or whatever.
Right now, we're just accepting them on a rolling basis.
Are they online? Where can they find this portal?
There is not an online portal. I have applications and I am happy to share them. And you have an application, Kelly. It's not changed since the one you have. You're welcome to
I think
share.
it was online though, wasn't it? We filled it out online.
We sent it out through a newsletter. But
If you could send me the attachment again, if it's a paper form, because what I filled out was online, it was like I think.
yeah, it's in a Word document. And right now, if it were equitably divided between the counties, there would be about 2.8 million available per county. And we do have one project approved so far for 1.1 million. And then
You share with us what that is, or?
it's a housing project. And
You said what kind of housing?
multifamily.
I'm sorry.
Multifamily, market rate, multifamily. And then we did have a small amount approved for the project that we had talked about that did not receive tax credits. And that funding has been left out there in case they were going to reapply, and they do plan to reapply, and we had allocated $250,000 for that.
So we can talk a little more about that here. We go to our number 7, if that's okay. We do need to approve. So I guess I'll follow up real quick. Tony will call Patoka, I'll call Antro. I'll check on the realtor that I talked to. Bill's gonna take care of the high school, so all that'll be done. We'll commence next month and we'll have more information. I don't know if you all read what I sent you to look at, and I've got some more follow-ups on the big majors, and these are very high level stuff, the 3 priorities. And I just tried to break them down as simplistically as I could. You know, in terms of housing, encouragement of current business growth and new business opportunities. And I've got some more breakdowns, which I will probably send you in the next day or 2 on just some of my thoughts. And you guys can add to them, subtract from them, whatever you want to do. It won't hurt my feelings. But I think we just need to keep pursuing, try to get some sort of a guide plan for the county. So. We did get an invoice from Baker Tilly, and this goes back to us working on our budgets that we were required to do by the state. Back in whatever that was, November, December of last year. And their charge was $1,973.05 for those phone calls. So I need approval to pay that bill for.
And these are all your phone calls, because I just wanna make sure, because the
My
county.
understanding is this is what they pushed out to us, yes.
Okay. Because the county also uses Baker Tilly, so I just wanna make sure we're not paying.
I think Chris and I talked about that too, and I think we had separated, these were ours and those were yours.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I just wanna make sure.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The other item that I did add, I did not get the information back, so we'll just table that for the next meeting. Zach will get me numbers.
And one job and I couldn't get it done.
So we'll just table that one for the next meeting.
I don't think Zach,
Well, out of there, so I hope they're not getting that bill. If not, I guess we'll have to send him some lunch money or something.
I'll take you down. There you go.
So this is kind of a continuation of the last conversation we just had here in the group. You know, and I don't know, Aaron, do you have any additional updates for us from PCDC standpoint?
I do, as of last month, I had asked if you wanted me.
Are you able to come up here? I'm sorry.
Sure.
We're recording this, so I want to make sure everybody can hear. Thank you.
Yes, last month I had asked if you would like us to continue to submit the RBC owned properties to site searches from the state, and you said yes. So there were two requests for information or site searches. The 29 acre prep pad across from ATTC was met all the criteria for, and I did talk to John and shared some of the basics of the RFI, and stated that he would like me to respond, and I submitted both of those. One of them was pretty basic, and the other was a request for information that had very extensive Excel spreadsheet that requested a lot of information, but we got it all done in time, and it has been submitted.
When do you expect to hear back, or how long does that typically take?
I never hear back.
Okay.
Guess we'll hear back if we get lucky. I mean, but they will go in and occasionally update the project and say fulfilled. That doesn't mean they're gonna tell you who they picked, but that would mean that we would know we weren't.
Have you ever filled these out and then gotten feedback, like more information, or here's where you are, or here's why we didn't choose you, or?
If you make it past a certain round, yes. But not if, I mean, the majority of the requests that we get are statewide. So you have counties and cities and developers submitting to them, and then there are typically multiple states that are also submitting. And I mean, let's be honest, ours are not always the most attractive sites because we are rural and we aren't next to, a major airport or a major population that has a university or things like that. So it's challenging, but I can promise you that I do everything possible to make us in the best light and get the most accurate, timely information presented in the best way possible.
Highly competitive.
It is highly, highly, highly competitive.
Is it industrial, do they tell you? I guess it's.
They're almost always industrial. At least the statewide requests are typically, they're manufacturing or distribution, a lot of auto. I think that the ones that are more like life sciences or technology related, they usually specify what county they're looking to be in for many reasons. But they're, for the most part, these particular projects were food processing or food production.
Our biggest advantage here is water. We have water. A lot of counties don't have the water availability that we have. And that eventually pushes us up to the upper levels, but water is something that we have available.
And one thing that we could look at doing that would be good for the sites that you do have are there have been some studies done and some of the information collected that is necessary to move forward right away. But those sites, I mean, that one was graded, and so there were changes made that now require a lot of that stuff. It could be updated, and even just having more information. Anytime I contact any of the utilities that serve these, it's really hard for them to be able to give me exact answers because it's based on the usage and how many out. Is it 24/7? Is it 24/5? Are they using a little bit, is this gonna require an upgrade? Then they've gotta contact an engineer and the time frame is really tight. So they then need to know, okay, how much money is it gonna take for us to be able to upgrade to get here, and then what would that make our rate be? So there's a lot that goes into it, and I think that there are things that we could do in our funds that you can invest to do more studies and have them like right at hand. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and a lot of the stuff is outdated.
I think Calvin needs help
I agree.
marketing. I talked to some people up there who are kind of working with the mayor, and give it away. Give the Ken Clay site away. To get the investment, to get the jobs, to get the tax money coming in, because it's bringing nothing. And it hasn't brought anything in for years. I mean, I feel like we need to help them market that. And again, you say, I do say, give it away. If somebody invests $2 or $3, $5 million in a small manufacturing, it's better than where they're at now.
They need to assess.
They need help getting that and to help that community too.
But
That
I'm
is
not
buildable
sure-
land.
I'm not sure the infrastructure.
As far as utilities, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is
Well,
it all ready?
The
I mean,
sewage
that's-
is there.
Well, yeah.
They just built a brand new plant next to it.
No,
You know,
I understand that, but I mean, I don't know if everything else is there.
So they've got
So,
what they need.
so would that be something that we could put on our list whenever we get these proposals?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that needs, knowing what is expected in response to the proposals, there is a lot of prep work that would need to be done for those in terms of zoning and permitting and knowing, what areas are brownfields and aren't, and what you can and can't do in certain areas. And I think that I've heard this, both discussions from administration in terms of, is it industrial, is it commercial, is it residential? And I think that has to be determined, because that is gonna.
By them.
Right, and they need to decide what that focus is, because if it's gonna be industrial, then it needs to,
Needs to be set
That's how
up.
it
for
needs to
that.
be.
all the infrastructure really does need to be looked at. If it's more residential, there are brownfields there, there's stuff that's gonna have to be done to get it prepared for residential. And I think there's some commercial stuff going on there now that could be really, really neat. That could make that be a really unique area, but it's just a very expensive investment, and I think that it has to be determined by them what direction they want to take it for that entire district.
There's a pretty good chunk of ground there. Flat,
Yes,
doesn't flood. We don't have a lot of that.
there is.
Speaking of already, I mean, there's
We still have the 250 million for the blight clearance program for the Lily, is that correct? Because I think that's also an issue. I mean, that they need to address blight, and I think that I just saw on social media today that the city took ownership of one of the buildings and it was getting torn down today, which is a great thing, but they just don't have unlimited funds to be able to take buildings down. So is there some kind of blight clearance program where we can get some kind of match money? And it doesn't have to be just Cannleton, but it can be anywhere where we can take down blight, clear it, and increase the assessed value of the overall area, and maybe sell the lots to build something else on. I mean, throughout the whole county. I don't care if it's in the county, I don't care if it's Troy, Cannleton, Tell City, whoever, can we create a program for that and potentially get some grant funding if we have a match? I don't know. I mean, is that something we can look at? Because
The blight ready funds, the additional, there was additional 250 million, but that was split between Parks and Culture, and the larger amount was dedicated to blight and redevelopment. That is currently on hold just due to the transition in administration, and then it will, I'm sure, start moving again. Those are very, very, very competitive, and you have to have the perfect percentages in terms of 20% public, 60% private, and it has to, we can apply for them, for
I
sure,
just like to see what
but
that
there
is.
has to
But that would have to be applied
like
through,
there has to be a
the
private
city would have to
investment to
apply for
match
that.
it. as the owner of the property, the city would be the applicant, and then that public portion, it wouldn't have to come from the city, it could come from the county, as long as there was a public match that went into it. But you have to have the private there too, or they won't fund it.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just think nothing's impossible. We could always look at what, they may not have the funds right there, but they may be able to get grants or, I don't know. Whether you take out a bond bank loan or, something that's at a cheap interest rate, a governmental rate to.
Any of it, but we don't have a contract with Perry County right now, and it's been indicated to me that the commissioners are looking to outsource those services. So until
You're talking to the wrong one. That's the commissioners, and they are looking at all options, and I think that that they sent out a questionnaire or something.
And I saw that they had had a meeting, and I did not have a chance to submit a proposal.
So you didn't fill out a questionnaire for them?
Well, they said that they had received submitted proposals, and I was just giving follow-up questions. I didn't get a chance to submit a proposal.
But you submitted a contract.
I don't call that a proposal.
If you have a proposal, I'm sure they would take it.
Well, is there an RFP?
You'll have to speak with them. You'll have to speak with them about it.
I thought that had to be done.
Anyway, so we've got some things going. I think Tony and I were just chatting here a bit. I may try to get a sit down with the mayor and see if we can have at least some conversations, because since we are technically the redevelopment commission for the county, see if there's anything we can help them with. And really, we're just helping is what we do, because we have really no other authority at this point, unless they want to create a TIF district, and that's on them. Not on us. At this point, they're going to have to request that. But they also, as those work, you have to have revenue in order to issue bonds in order for them to pay themselves off. So hence that's why the residential TIFs are extremely difficult to get done. Unless the builder is willing to buy the bonds, they're extremely difficult to get done.
I just like to know what the top priorities are and what the challenge, what I've asked before.
Well,
but
the top
challenge.
3 priorities are housing, current business, and new business. That's our major big.
That's what we decided that we're gonna do for the whole county, is that?
Well, that's what they are for the county. That's what they all, if you break everything down, they break down in somewhere into those 3 categories. That's the high look at the whole thing. Then there's a lot of individual things, but on the list of a lot of the individuals, that's stuff that either the cities have got to do, the county's got to do. We don't do that. We can help, but we don't do that.
We work under their direction.
Yeah, we work under.
We're going out on the limb asking the water companies to come in.
Yeah, we're not the planning and zoning, we're the redevelopment commission. And I think part of the issue is we're gonna have, and I don't know what planning and zoning is for the county, I know they're working on some things. But ultimately, before we start doing too much building there, that's gotta get very organized. And that's one thing we did have to work with the city to organize just because of.
The more streamlined that can be,
Yeah.
good from experience for
So-
that.
So that's really, that's the job that we took on as redevelopment commission. It's really not our job. We've just taken it on.
I just like the idea that you took on a project and now it's finished, and I'd like to take on another project. Work through it, see it through
So,
fruition.
I mean, I'm in favor to continue these conversations, and maybe we get some things going. But if nothing else, we keep it in front of people's minds that we do want to grow as a community. The bottom line is we have to grow. We don't have a choice. If we don't grow, everything is gonna fall apart.
I agree.
And we have very limited resources, so we have to be very, very efficient on how we do things. And that's really what it boils down to. So, with that, I'll quit preaching. That's the last item on our agenda. We'll continue. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn. I'll move. Motion in second.
We approve the Baker Tilly invoice?
Yeah.
Okay. Davis?
We didn't get Zach's in because,
That's the one that was missing.
then we added, we just subtracted.